Good morning, everyone, and especially good morning to Maciej Miąsik. Please confirm that I said it correctly. Is that well said?
Yeah, it's close enough. It's Maciej Miąsik, but still I understand that this is difficult to pronounce.
Okay, I take the close enough. I take it since I know, like once you even mentioned that it's hard even for Polish people. So I think I'm quite alright. No, czasami spróbuję, no spróbuję rozmawiać. Czasami jest dobrze, czasami nie.
Yeah,
My Polish is
you,
not that
yeah,
bad.
you are much better in pronouncing my name than many other people, so I'm quite happy.
Okay. It's a compliment. There is a slight compliment there somewhere. Okay, for everyone. Also, Mache and I we live in the same city, but since we're two lazy people, no, there are technical problems. That's why we couldn't meet in person. But definitely we need to go for a lunch at some point or a dinner, just the two of us. Um, for the audience also, I've already started saying few things on the social medias, LinkedIn, Instagram, etc. So people know a little bit about you. But let me say that your story is fabulous. Fabulous, of course, because there is so much of handcrafting, right? Of like you
Yeah.
started getting interested in video games or computers, consoles, where when here in this country in Poland there is still the Iron Curtain, Soviet Union, so the situation was quite dire. You didn't have access to almost anything. I don't want to say too much about like I will let you go. I would be and I will jump in, but that's just a little bit of an intro. Maciej, when can we date back the beginning of your interest for video games and how it was, how easy it was to have access to those. When actually did you start the interest for video games, and when did you have access to video games? So many questions. You go.
Yeah, it's quite difficult to pinpoint the exact date, because it was so long ago. But it started with the computers, not the games. Because well, when I was in high school, we had the class called computer science, but it was very theoretical. We just talk about computers we saw in TV, we saw in magazines and stuff like that. It was strange machines doing stuff, and there was no video games mentioned at that time. It was 19, I think, 84, not 84, about that. So I was quite interested because but we had a chance to see some kind of perforated tape or punch cards or stuff like this. But we talk about the computers only as the machines being used for serious stuff. But I was quite interested in these computers, because it was, I don't know really why, it was kind of novelty, and I really like
But
the.
for me, sorry for
Yeah.
interrupting, but for me, it's so interesting that you could, because I remember also those times. So in '84, I was 6 years old, right? I remember also those lights, those
Yeah.
those tapes with all the holes. How how did that trigger a real interest in computers in
Yeah,
yourself?
because we
What happened?
we knew that those machines can be programmed and they can do stuff. Usually, as I said, some serious stuff like computing for the science, computing for the industry, but nothing you could really touch. We only saw the printouts from this industrial style printers on the continuous paper, and some calculations, and maybe some calculations for the money we have to pay for the electricity and stuff. But I knew that this we can program those machines, and then those machines can do different stuff, like printing out naked ladies with ASCII art and stuff like this. So it was interesting. And at the same time, I was quite active in the class, and the teacher, so I'm very grateful for that, decided that me and my friend, we are good fit to go to the course for the teachers, for the programming course for the teachers.
Okay.
So, well, he asked that if we are interested. Obviously, we were. So we went there. It was at Rzeszów University, and we joined a group of computer science teachers. The teachers were also quite, theoretical with the computers because they didn't have computers. So
Let me one thing. Let me put a geographical aura into this so that people understand a little bit of what we're talking about. So we're talking about Poland. Warsaw, as you may remember, as everyone remembers, everyone knows, is in the center. We can
yeah,
say really very, very center of Poland. And then we have Rzeszów. So Maciej was born in Rzeszów, so which is the southeast of
Poland.
Poland,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's a city that is way smaller than even today. I think we're not beyond 300 and
No.
330,000
It's
people, not
it's
even
around
that.
200, 250 maybe.
Oh, 250. And I've been there many, many times. I know the city. It's called, by the way, let's repeat, it's called Rzeszów. Is written in a way that when I have the AI trying to, so the problem I have with the AI, with my clone voice saying the bio of Maciej, is that the problem is exactly the pronunciation of the Polish name. So Rzeszów is sounded like Rzeszów, something like that, and it's impossible to understand it. But anyway, so we're talking about southeast of Poland, so even not even the capital,
Mhm.
where still there was like the socialism and Soviet Union, but at least Warsaw was maybe a little bit, slightly little bit more vibrant, but smaller city like Rzeszów. So we're talking about even a different level.
Yeah.
So just sorry, continue with that. Just wanted to offer to everyone the understanding of what we're talking about.
So, well, I went with those teachers and started to learn basic. It was we learned basic on the mini computer. The machine that looks like the desk, basically the desk with the typewriter and printer, teletype actually, and no
Teletype.
screen.
Oh my goodness.
You cannot see
Teletype.
anything on the screen, but you could program it and run the program and see the results. Of course, we started writing very simple programs that do some calculations. I don't know, I don't remember even at that time. And we see the printout. The printout is fine, and we get the code of the program on the punch tape, on the so the spool of paper with holes, and that was it. I could only download this program from this tape and run again, and that was. But it was fun, really, because this machine did what I wanted it to do. So I was hooked. I decided, okay, this is interesting. But it was one-time venture. We finished this course, and I couldn't do anything because there was no computers at school and anything like that. But we were quite fortunate that the data center for the Polish bank was next to our school, and the guys working there wanted to use our gym, our school's gym. So they asked, okay,
Oh, they wanted to train at your
yeah,
gym,
yeah, they
at your
wanted to
gym.
play, I don't know, basketball or something like that. So
Okay.
so they asked the school if this is possible, and they offered in exchange that we have computers, so we could take some students and simply teach them programming those computers. And school agreed, and those students, it was me and my friend, obviously, and we quickly agreed. And they took us to this data center, and it was a whole new experience because it was a huge mainframe computer. It was Russian clone on, let's say, socialist clone, because it wasn't only Russian manufacture. It was a kind of joint venture of uh, communist countries creating a communist clone of IBM System 360 or 370, some of those. But it was on the different level, huge machines, tape, magnetic tape, and
Yeah.
spinning, magnetic disks, huge printers, and monitors, and even floppy disks. So we used 8-inch floppy disk, this size, very huge, to write the code. And they started teaching us Pascal this time. So it was a good experience. They offered us some books, and we started writing the code. obviously it was writing. It was this machine work in the batch mode, so you have to prepare your code and your data and run through the machine and wait for the printouts, because that was the only output
Okay.
from the machine. But it was very, very serious stuff, the huge data center with the air conditioned. It was probably the only air conditioned place I knew at the time. It was obviously
Well,
very
it's
cold because those machines required a lot of cooling.
I can picture the scene, right, of you and your friends that just being there in the middle of all this thing. Just probably was like for us today thinking about the multiverse,
Yeah.
or something like that, thinking of something like, oh my goodness, I'm there.
Yeah, so we started writing the programs. The programs were written on the floppy disk. Those floppy disks were then uploaded to the queue for the processing, and the machine processed that and print out different stuff. And we wrote again some stupid programs. The pinnacle of our achievement at that time was that we created the program that printed out something called biorhythms for everyone. So if you enter your yeah,
Biorhythms,
yeah,
biorhythms.
if you enter
Okay.
your born date, it simply draws a sinus of something.
Oh,
It is not a science. It was fun, but we could collect the born dates from all our colleagues in the class, and then print those sinuses for everyone, showing that people are up and down at specific date. But it was fun, and
yeah, of course. It's not about like what it was actually doing, but it was for more for you that you were doing
yeah,
that, and whether or not was useful, the end result was useful or not. Like you just did
yeah, we
something
created
amazing, right?
programs, and this machine did what we wanted, and then printed out this a lot of paper. And yeah, we made this. It is a kind of creation. So we are quite happy. We learned a bit of this Pascal language at the time, and it is a time where things started to change in Poland. So obviously, some people started to import personal computers or home computers.
So what year are we talking about
We
now?
are
Let's
talking
just
about
let's
1985, around
okay.
85.
So things were not great yet,
Yeah,
but things started. There was like the wind of change, correct?
maybe not really wind of change at that time. It
A
was very
breeze
depressing and bleak, but some people work in the West,
abroad, right?
abroad.
Yes.
So they earn real currency, and some of them brought some novelties from there. So they started to import home computers, mostly 8-bit home computers. So suddenly, some of our friends could bring those computers to school and to show us, and we started playing video games, computer games at that time, because we had video games in terms of this Pong clones, real video games, very simple, that you could play only Pong, and that was all. But now we started to see real computer games, real video games, because real consoles weren't the options. They were expensive, and they relied on the physical games you had to buy. But if you had a computer, you could simply pirate anything and play. So obviously, everyone was investing in the home computers instead of home consoles at that time. So we had access to the home computers, but not the consoles. So that's probably first time when I started to play games on the computer. Also, it was around that time, around 85, 86, that we could buy a home computer. 8-bit Atari was available in Poland in the special stores called Pewex. Those stores sold basically Western goods for the Western currency, unfortunately. So, but at least we could go there and buy those computers. They were quite expensive at that time. So Atari was $100 in price, but you have to remember it's $100 in 1985. So it's completely different.
Probably like 1,000 today.
Yeah,
Probably.
and it was very expensive for the average person because it was like, I don't know, more than monthly salary at that time. But you could go and buy. So suddenly there was a lot of those Ataris at first available at some clubs, computer clubs. So you could go to the club where the computers were and you could use those. So I was a part of such club at the technical university in Rzeszów. So I started going there and playing with the computers, and at some point I decided, okay, I need one. So I had to convince my father. I was brought up by my mother alone because my father decided to have fun elsewhere. It wasn't a good father.
So they separated, right?
So
yeah,
yeah. So when I was when you were a little kid, also so we met every several years at most.
Okay. So you were not even just seeing like once a month.
No,
every.
He just paid alimony. That was all.
Oh, that was it. Okay.
But I said, okay. I need this. So I hate to go to him and simply ask, which was quite difficult for me at that time.
Oh, so you wanted to ask him to contribute for you to be able to purchase the Atari?
Yeah, because it wasn't possible for my mom to buy.
Of course.
So
wow. Okay. And how did it go? So you went to him.
So
what did he say?
I went to him because he lived in different town, and I said, okay, I need this, simply as that. I need this computer because I'm really into computers, and this is way too expensive for us to afford, and I need you to give me this $100. I know you are quite wealthy man because he was a lawyer, so it shouldn't be a problem for you. Okay, he agreed. And he gave me this $100, and I was quite happy. I went to Pevex and bought my machine, but it was, the computer alone, no peripherals, no disk drive, no tape drive, no monitor, obviously.
So what did you do with something that is practically unusable?
I hooked to the TV and write basic programs and have fun for an hour and then switch off and I had to repeat this next time.
Because there was no memory.
No memory,
sort of.
But so the tape drive was another, I believe, $25. So still a lot of money. So I was fortunate because I had a friend who was good with electronics, so he could create an interface that allowing me to use any tape recorder. So I had my, obviously, cassette tape recorder, as anyone at that time, and he created this interface, put in a soap box, because that was the only box easily available for the electronics at that time. And that way I could connect my tape recorder to the computer. So I could hook up the computer to the TV. I believe I was fortunate to have the color TV at that time, which wasn't obvious, So I could use TV.
No, but wait. Let's stop for a second. So wait a second. Oh my god. Okay. I need to put the pieces together. So you have an Atari. You connect it to your TV, which was color. I'll say at least you had a TV, and then out of a tape, a cassette player, basically cassette tapes. Out of that, your friend made a external memory drive, something like that you connect.
Yeah, because you weren't able to connect the normal cassette deck to the Atari, because it requires some kind of interface that changed the signals from the analog signals from the tape into something that the computer could use. Other machines like ZX Spectrum, for example, you could hook up the cassette directly to the machine, but Atari was different.
Oh.
Atari is required special. That's why the tape recorder for the Atari was so expensive, because it was a simple tape recorder but with some extra electronics.
Okay.
So the electronics wasn't really expensive, but you had to create this piece of
course.
PCB with some component.
Now I got it. For me, it was wow.
So I used my tape recorder, which I used for music and everything, and could hook up to the computer, and I could use it, and I could start programming it because I could write the program and write down a tape, and then retrieve if necessary, continue working. And we are quite fortunate in Rzeszów, because we had a strong group of people very interested in Ataris at the time and programming at that time, and also one of those was Janusz Wiśniewski, which created probably the best development environment for the Atari at that time. He created very, very useful assembler with editor. And then it turned into even better tools, completely ID, the editor, assembler, debugger, and stuff, all integrated in one program. So it was mind-blowing compared to anything on the market for the 8-bit Atari at that time. Mostly because he was a professional programmer working on the PC, so he know how the stuff looks on the PC, and he tried to recreate the similar experience on the 8-bit Atari, because he was quite enthusiastic about the Atari. So we had access to these tools, and I started writing code for the 8-bit Atari. It was written in assembler because that was the most efficient way of programming these 8-bit machines. And I had a lot of fun, doing this. My career in on the 8-bit Atari even ended with one of my programs being published and sold in Poland. It's automat perkusyjny. It's a drum machine. I took. There was a drum machine program on the Atari, but it was quite awful in terms of usability and interface and everything. But it had those drum samples I could rip from it, so I ripped it and create a whole new interface. Very modern, quite useful. I worked with my friend who is a musician about how it should work, and I created my copy and simply release it and sold for the money.
And just understand here also, okay, we're still getting probably closer to 89, 91 when everything got, but how old were you at that point? Because it's just interesting to know, were you 16 or were you 25?
Right? I finished high school in 1996. 96, yes. So
high school in 1996.
Yeah. So I decided, okay, I'm into computers. I program computers. I'm quite interested in computers, so I need to study computer science. My first choice was to study computer science at the Jagiellonian University. Just that. I don't know why, because it wasn't the best idea.
Yeah, no. Sorry. But just the moment where you published this first game for that Atari,
no, it was, the drum machine. It was published a bit later because I work on that. But most of the stuff we did on the 8-bit Atari was just for fun. There was no option to sell it at that time. We weren't even thinking about the commercial side of that. Yeah. We had fun to create some kind of useful programs to work on disk editors, some tools. I wrote pretty popular command line interface for the Atari system. Because we wanted to improve our tools, improve the way we work with the Atari, because that was the only computer available for us. So we obviously we've seen different computers. We've seen PCs somewhere because it was time that the PCs started to appear in Poland. But it was most of those were used in some industry. We couldn't access those, but we saw some tools, some programs, and we said, okay, let's create something similar on our machines. So we did a lot of that. But I wanted to learn more about the computers. So I wanted to study computer science, and I went to Jagiellonian University. I had to pass exams, which were quite difficult. I have no idea how I did that, frankly speaking, because yeah, but I was admitted, so no questions about that. And I started learning computer science. The problem was that the computer science at the university is completely different beast than I expected. I was quite interested in the classes where the related to the actual programming, to logic and stuff like this, but all other things were mostly maths, a lot of it. And I realized that, but I have no idea about this maths. They are talking about, completely things I cannot understand, really. So I felt, okay, this is not really for me. I'm quite interested in spending my time in the laboratory where we had this mainframe computer. So I wrote some code, some programs, spent most of the time there instead of at the classes, learning.
Yeah.
So my grades weren't that good, frankly speaking. So I said, I need to change something. It's not that it wasn't that easy because at this time at that time we had this compulsory military service, so
Yeah.
everyone
Yeah.
tried to avoid that because it was 2 years wasted doing stupid shit. So
I like the definition.
yeah,
You
because
know, I went
it was like that there.
I went through it. I also did that 2 years, but actually it was my choice.
Yeah,
Now in Italy,
yeah.
also at the time it was 1998. We still had it obligatory, so either you choose that or you could do like the like social services. I actually chose to stay there for 2 years, so I know. But you're right. At the end of the day, the bottom line is that it is some stupid shit.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
we can.
So
I think we can say it. I think we say it.
you could do anything to avoid that. When you were learning, you were simply relieved from the duty, but you had to learn something. So most of my friends and myself, we tried to switch schools. So I decided, okay, I need to switch school to something more appropriate for my level of understanding of maths. It was difficult. I hate to. Now I can say that I hate to fake sickness in order to get some papers. Okay,
What kind of sickness did you fake? We are
it was
interested in that.
it
We
was some
want to
kind
know.
related to kidney or something like that. It was
Okay,
yeah,
quite
yeah. I
quite
could
ingenious. Quite ingenious.
obviously I had to use some
Some doctors
doctors
very
that
that was like
knew me, and
complacent.
we had to fake some papers, but I did that. So
Okay, okay.
I get a year off basically to think about my future. Uh, and I spent this year programming Atari, obviously, but I decided, okay, I need to find another school, and this time it was University of Economics. Is probably this is the name now for the school in Krakow. And I had to pass exams again, so I passed. This time the level was quite low, so it was much easier for me. And I started learning there, and it was my level. If I could,
Okay.
I could finish this school if not different things.
Okay.
Because at the time, people at the Jagiellonian University, especially people working in the computer lab, knew me quite well, and they they said, okay, we have this because it's around 88, 89, so there is a wind of change. So we because you know. Uh, the political situation was kept at the same situation, let's say, but in 1998 there was this law allowing people to start businesses, basically, very easily. Suddenly, we transformed from the totally communist country or socialist country into country where everyone can start a business without basically any problem.
So are we talking about 1988, maybe
88.
not 90?
Yeah, it's
Okay,
88.
so
So
even
it's
before.
still
Okay, so
before the the huge change.
exactly, and so you finished high school in
See,
86,
yeah,
not in
yeah,
96. Okay, now it makes
yeah.
sense. Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
So there was a lot of businesses and companies starting up at this time. It was,
Yeah.
it it was so easy to start a business. It's difficult to understand people, starting business nowadays. Even though we have this, uh, a lot of now you can start pretty easily. You can go and start the business in one, as I
Oh
say,
yeah.
in one window. So you just enter one office and basically you are done, or you can even do it online. But before, it was even easier than that. So people started a lot of businesses, and those people working at the university, they had the so-called IT business nowadays, but it wasn't called IT at the time. It was a computer business or something like that. So basically, they started selling computers and started writing software, mostly business-related software, and they offered me a kind of internship and paid, internship. So they
Okay, paid. Wow.
yeah, so they say, come and work with us. We will pay you some, obviously low salary, but you can, because we understand that you are very interested in computers doing different time. And I start talking about the games, because at the time because my friends, some of the friends from Rzeszów, from this Atari group, some of them started creating games on the 8-bit Atari and even publish those and start earning money. But I decided, okay, I'm mostly interested in the PCs because I saw the PCs in the computer lab, and this internship allowed me to use PCs at this company and start writing the code on the PC. So I said, it's a good idea to write a game, because I thought at the time that writing games is probably the best thing that each programmer can do. Any good programmer should aspire to be a game programmer, because that's the top of the top, in programming. It was stupid. I understand that now, but this something this was something I thought about. So okay, I would like to create computer game on the PC, and they understand it, and they said me, okay, try do something. You will be a kind of R&D department in our company, R&D directed to games, and they even allowed me to get help from one of very experienced programmer at the company, who knew the PCs much better than me at the time. So they said, okay, Andrzej will help you with some low-level stuff. He knows PCs pretty well at the time, so if you need help, he will provide the help. And I said, oh, great. I'm paid for this and I can experiment with making games. So I will try to make my first game. Obviously, when you have no idea how to make a game and there's no way to learn about it, there are no books about writing games. There is no internet at that time. There's this Fidonet, I was a Fidonet point, Fidonet user. Fidonet was a net consisted on BBSs and users with modems at the time, and we could exchange even a kind of email but it was quite different from the internet at that time.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Okay.
imagine the
Okay.
situation. You want to create the game. You have no idea how to do that. You cannot Google it. There's no YouTube with tutorials about that.
There is no internet.
There's
There is
no
no
internet.
internet.
There are books, but those books are not available in Poland.
Yeah.
Besides being quite expensive, but
So what did you do? What did you do?
so I decided, okay, and you have no idea how to design game. So I decided, let's make a clone of the game I know pretty well. And this game was Boulder Dash, pretty popular 8-bit game on probably any platform, including PC, of course, later. So I knew Boulder Dash pretty well. I played it a lot. So we did some reverse engineering of the Atari version to learn about how the game is done. So I decided, okay, I will create the clone of this game because I need to learn about making games on something. And that approach reduces a lot of problems for you because you don't have to design. You don't have to think about design because the game is designed. You just have to recreate the behavior of all elements of the game, and the levels are designed, so you don't have to do this for yourself. And I teamed with the Andrzej, the programmer, and he wrote anything related to displaying stuff on the screen because it was quite complex. There was a lot of assembly language necessary to write this in an efficient manner. But the logic of the game, how the game worked, was I did that. I wrote this game in Pascal using Turbo Pascal, very, very popular.
I remember Turbo Pascal.
Yeah, Turbo Pascal was great. You know, it was extremely fast
But do you remember? Like, I don't know you, but for me, I just remember this. That was even before with DOS or something. You know, I remember the turtle moving the turtle up and down and making it square. It was such a it was such a hard thing to do, and then just move the turtle of a square, and it was like, yeah. I understand. Yeah. Please, sorry.
Yeah. So we did that. We created the clone. You know, it was something we did and just put in the drawer because we couldn't do anything with that. But it was my really first game I did, and it was a huge learning experience at that time. So no, I get a lot of knowledge how to use Turbo Pascal and how to program PC, how to cope with different problems regarding the hardware, and I learned a lot of the hardware.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was my first game. Obviously, I couldn't publish it. I couldn't use it anywhere, but I finished it, and this is always a huge, achievement.
Achievement, of course. Okay, so you get this, and
at the same time, my friend Janusz Pelc, who is kind of legend, because he created a couple of successful Atari games, and which were selling as hotcakes at that time. He joined me because at this time, because we were friends, we were talking about a lot of what's going on, and I said, okay, this company which is really into maybe games. Moving to PC is probably a good move because we knew that Atari it was dead on the West, and we always wanted to create the game that will sell in the West, worldwide. That was really our goal.
Okay.
So he joined this company, and we start experimenting with making games because he had this very successful Atari game called Robbo, a kind of card game for even today, and we attempted to port it. Now this is called porting, but at that time we just created a PC version of his 8-bit game. So this game, we work on this together. Funny story, I forgot about that. I forgot about this version of Robo because we did the proper PC port of Robo, I don't know, like 4 years later. But I completely forgot about that because we did this version and even tried to find a publisher for it, because at the time, if you wanted your game on the market, you had to find the publisher, someone who will create the physical copies of your game and sell to the stores. But we were unsuccessful. It was quite difficult. It was around 1989, still, something like that, maybe
Okay.
1990. And connecting with someone on the West, with the real publisher, were extremely, extremely difficult. Okay.
Okay, so there was not the end of the Soviet Union yet, right?
No,
So
yeah, we had this change in Poland, but
it was
still,
like
but for the rest of the world,
89. So
we
yeah.
are still behind the Iron Curtain, because Iron Curtain fell at that time, but still they treat us as a
Yes, yes, third world
yeah,
country, sort of, yeah,
white
and
bears,
treat
snow, rations,
exactly.
vodka, and stuff like this. It was very difficult to contact the publishers, and also remember, there's no internet. You cannot Google, electronic arts. So you had to find some contact information in the magazines, stuff like this. So we're unsuccessful with trying to get someone interested in the game, and I forgot I did that. And about 20 years later, some stranger contacted me about the robo game from 1989 or something. I said, "Oh
Uh-huh.
no, there was not. It is not possible, because I would know if someone made such game on the PC, because I worked next to the original author of the game, so we probably know about this." He said, no, I'm quite sure there was such a game. I said, it's not possible, because we did the proper port 2 years later. And he sent me the screenshots from this game and screenshots from the credits, and there is my name there. And I just, what? And then I remembered, obviously, there was such version. But for some reason, I forgot totally. For 20 years,
So it's funny that for 20
yeah,
years, like you didn't remember, then someone comes up and say, "Hey, here's I
yeah, this
have
is
even
game.
a screenshot of this." Okay,
Oh.
and what this person wanted something specific from you, or just
No,
wanted to tell
because
you, "Hey, are
there
you?"
is a lot of people interested in all those old games,
Yes.
So all those nostalgia groups talking all the time about old good times, and those people simply try to find something interesting from old times, and sometimes they contact me about details about stuff, and this person contacted me about the game, and I really forgot about this version. So your memory is fickle, let's say, and mine as well. So it was our first attempt to create the commercial product. It was unsuccessful because we couldn't find anyone interested, mostly because it was very difficult. Not that the game was bad,
Okay.
but the way to contact Western companies at the time was we started using fax machines at the time. I remember using the teletype to contact my friends in Holland. So it was very difficult to connect, other than snail mail, so called.
Yeah.
So it was okay. First attempt unsuccessful, but one of the founders of this company we were part of decided, okay, I have an idea for a startup, and we didn't know that it was called startup at the time. I want to create a commercial software and sell the software in boxes in Poland.
Okay.
Yeah, it's around 1990. It wasn't it was a kind of novelty idea. Of course, you could buy box software, but it was very expensive because it was simply imported from the West. So people prefer
Okay.
to buy the software on so-called giełda. The giełda,
What's Gilda? Gilda is the
yeah, it's a
market.
kind of computer market. So every
Ah,
Sunday
okay.
you went to a kind of market with computers, computer software, and computer peripherals, and you can buy any software you want. You pay for
Okay.
the media, or for it depends how many discs. That was the price, no matter what software.
Ah.
So if you
Okay.
if
So
you wanted very
okay.
expensive software from the West, the
So
price was
it's
number
sort.
of discs.
So we're talking about a sort of a fair,
Yeah, yeah,
right? So it's a fair where you go and there are all these people selling all the. There were probably few legal things and many. Well, it was not
Yeah, yeah,
even illegal probably at that time.
it wasn't illegal at the time. That's the issue, because the software wasn't protected by the copyrights in Poland until 1994. So
Okay.
you could simply go there
So
and buy.
just copy it.
Yeah, so
Copy
everyone,
we're copying it for
you
you.
just paid
Okay.
for the copy, and this guy is but I will create the software and sell it in boxes. It, but my idea was, his idea was to, okay, I have to offer something special. So I will offer, first of all, I will offer the box, the manual, I will offer support, and the price will be, let's say, acceptable. And he said, okay, guys, I see that you try to create a game, to create a commercial product. Maybe one of those pieces of software will be computer game. What about that? So we said, oh, it's a good idea, because after our experience with the porting robo and talking about, making our next game, we think we are ready to create our original game. He said, okay, let's do this together. So we moved from this office to the office next building, set up a shop, and we decided, okay, we'll create the game. This game will be called Electrobody. It will be the first Polish professionally made game on the PC. That was the advertisement slogan. Obviously, it wasn't the first one, but in reality, but that was true. So we sat down. We were paid as a programmers, and we spent like 9 months creating the game from the scratch. Not only the game, we had to create the tools. We had to create the graphical editor to simply create the sprites, and then level editor to turn the sprites, the tiles into levels, write the code, test it, write the game to in order to be run on different machines, different video cards, different sound cards. We had to import sound card, because this wasn't standard equipment on many PCs. So we had to import from the West. Ask our friend, okay, bring us the Sound Blaster at that time, because we need the sound card to test the game on the sound card. And we did this. We create the game called Electrobody, and then together with this guy, we create the product. Because the game is only a part. We wanted to sell the product, the boxed product, the box with manual, with cassette, with the cassette with the soundtrack. Obviously, media times 2 floppy disks or something like that. So we had to create a huge, because it is obvious that now you manufacture this thing somewhere, but at that time everything was a problem. The box was a problem. We had to create a special PC to duplicate the disk at once. We had to figure out how to print the manual because printing press was something that was strictly controlled by the government at that time. But of course, now we can do that, because it's 91 actually at that time. So. But there was no easily available printing presses in Poland. All the presses were controlled by the state, because state didn't want anyone to print stuff, because they need to control what was printed. So if you want to print a kind of manual, you have to find the printer. There was this government factories printing stuff. They were quite happy to print whatever you want now. But the problem is that, the initial run was like, I don't know, 10,000 or 100,000 copies, because the machine is huge, like whole factory. So when you start printing, you cannot stop it unless there's printed like 10,000 pieces of anything.
Okay.
So you have to find someone with some old machine brought from the West, brought from the Germany, remembering the times of Second World War, and discuss with the guy. Okay, we need like 2,000 copies of this manual, because we had no idea how many copies we could sell. So we need to start with small amounts. we have had to create screenshot on the box, and screenshot meant real screenshot. So the guy with the camera
With the camera
shooting the
properly,
screen,
yeah.
the actual
Yeah, yeah,
screen.
the good old
Yeah, the
way. Yeah.
monitor. So we had to someone to,
So, do
yeah,
I can summarize this part, where when you basically became not only the game developer but also the distributor, the also
yeah,
everything you did.
everything.
Basically, you did everything
Yeah,
around
yeah,
this
you
game.
had to,
You programmed it, you created a box, you also just made the screenshots, you printed and you were involved in everything, which means you done everything.
yeah,
Damn, it's
yeah, yeah.
incredible
It was
how.
it was a small team. It was like 3 or 4 of us and couple of friends, our student friends, helping out with everything. But you had to do this everything and find a way to do this. Not just do this. Find a way,
Yeah.
because everything was a problematic. 2 years later, the situation was completely different. The speed of change was phenomenal at the time. 2 years later, we could do everything in the same building, basically. We had even printing press in the same building. We could print in full color, and we can oversee the process. Printing in the color at that time was
Oh,
huge,
yeah, yeah,
huge
yeah.
problem. But we did that, and we did radio commercials for the game. We did some posters, and we started selling the game. The game cost was 150,000 zlotys, old zlotys. It's like 15 zlotys, new
Okay.
zlotys. And it was a good price. People,
50 zlotys, you say. So 50 zlotys, just for everyone listening, 50 zlotys, we're talking about 10 euros. 10
yeah,
euros, $12. Yeah,
it
something
was
like that.
obviously it was more expensive than the software paid by media number of discs, but you got the original Polish game made by Polish developers for Polish players. You got manual, you got registration, you could register us, and you won some prizes. You could contact us in case of any problems. You got this compact cassette with the soundtrack. So it was a kind of collectible stuff. So people decided, okay, we like the idea that someone did the game for us. Some Polish guy did, Polish guys, because it was 2 of us most of the time. Did so they start buying the game. There was some kind of the copy protection, so you had to have the manual in order to pass some parts of the game, because the game asked you a question from from the manual. You have to find something in the manual and enter in the game in order to proceed, and it was quite difficult to remove. But later we removed this protection, and people still bought the game.
So, Maciej, I understand that we are. So, you basically worked on games when there were almost no games. Like there's so you worked on games across the pre and post fall of the Soviet Union. Which and so how did it change when this when it collapsed? What happened to you? What did you do? What happened? I'm sure that
Yeah,
at that point you were one of the few in Poland that knew things about video games. So I'm sure you have there is like the bright side of the story here.
yeah. The As I mentioned, the tempo of changes were phenomenal at the time. We started to create this game when we are not sure what would happen. Especially after, let's say, about 10 years of my youth, basically, where everything was very bleak, depressing. Hopeless. That's the good word. And suddenly, not only I'm working on games, but I'm thinking that, okay, maybe my games can reach wider audience, not just Polish people. Obviously, we advertise our first game as a Polish made game for Polish gamers, but our ambition was to sell this game anywhere. And a lot of stuff changed at the time. We got access to the internet. Obviously, there was no Google. You couldn't Google, but at least you could communicate pretty quickly with other people. So if you met someone with the email address, you could email them. It required to go to the computer lab that was connected to the internet at first. Then we could connect via modem. But that was huge change. Also, we decided, okay, we are not behind the Iron Curtain anymore. Of course, we are perceived that way, but we can go abroad. Yes, we had to have the visa to Germany at the time, but at least we could get one. It wasn't that easy, but we could go abroad. We could communicate with people abroad. So we had at this time 3 games released in Poland. It was Electrobody, which was a huge success. We had this PC port of Robo, which was mildly successful. We had much better hopes for that because the game was hugely popular on 8-bit computers. But it was selling well, and we also had a very small game called Hard Like PC, which also was a port from the Atari, slightly extended, expanded. And at that time, we got some inquiries from the West about the games, and most of the time they were interested in publishing one of our games in some region, for example, UK. But at some point, I decided because shareware was shareware games were very popular at the time. You remember Doom, the original Doom was shareware game. So when you got the shareware game, you got the contact information for the company selling the software. So I got some games from Epic Mega Games then. So there was a mailing address. So I simply took the envelope. I put our disk with our games in the envelope,
Right. And you sent it to them?
I sent it to them via snail mail, and they responded. After some time, they responded, okay, those games are pretty good. We would like to publish those. Well,
so that was that simple.
Yeah. They said maybe we should meet. Okay, we exchanged because at the time I already had the email, so we exchanged some email addresses and we started to talk about the meeting. And the meeting was in Rotterdam, in Holland, because it was less halfway. Yeah, because Mark Rain from Epic simply was there, so he was coming to Rotterdam and said, guys, please come to Rotterdam and we will meet and discuss any details. So we went there. We met with Mark Rain. It was fun. Mark Rain bought us our first console. He bought us Super Nintendo with a bunch of games. And we agreed. He said, okay, guys, we will take your games. We publish these games on any market the Epic can, and we will simply pay you royalties and it will be fun. And suddenly, we released the first game in 1992, at the beginning of 92. And in 1994, our games were available everywhere where Epic was.
Worldwide.
So basically worldwide, mostly States, but Western Europe, even, I don't know, Australia and stuff like this. So in 2 years, we became, international developers. So this is how quickly we achieved the goal to have our games available to anyone. Obviously, that wasn't the first Polish game available, because during the communist era we had the single company that basically created games for the worldwide markets. It was Polish developers working for the American company, and they created like, I don't know, 5 or 6 titles for many platforms. But it was government sanctioned joint venture. So this was very specific company. So this is what I call the ancient era of Polish game dev, because they stopped working around 1990 and never, as far as I know, never worked in the game industry after that, at least in Polish. Maybe some of those people went abroad and worked there, but and the industry we have now started with us, with me and other people, and this is the modern era.
So we could. So two things. The first question is, when Empik. Sorry, it's very trivial. If you may decide not to answer, but from the financial point of view, when Empik decided to publish your games within in those like couple of years, was it good money coming in, poured into your pocket, or was like,
it was good money,
pennies?
especially I was 25 at that time, so it was pretty good money. I was earning like twice the average, so it was I couldn't afford Ferrari, and I still cannot afford Ferrari, but it was a good money. It was much more than we expected, and this contact with Epic also gave me I don't know, 2 years later, another big opportunity, because Epic basically managed to get us the contract with Electronic Arts. So
okay, now we're talking about Electronic Arts.
So
like,
1990
quickly this one.
1992, I published my first game, and it was mostly targeting Poland. 2 years later, this game is available everywhere, and around 2 years later, I have the contract with Electronic Arts. Not I, the team, our
of course,
team,
your company, of course.
Yeah. And it was thanks to our contacts with Epic, because Epic was interested in what we are doing. We are building our next generation of our engine. We were trying to create new ways of creating graphics, because the games were still 2D, obviously. So it was a kind of pixel art. But at that time we learned that you can create sprites by creating 3D objects and simply rendering those 3D objects to sprites.
Oh,
that was the technique.
You could do that?
Yeah, that was the technique used. The first time we saw this in Donkey Kong Country on Super Nintendo. Donkey Kong Country was the game by Rare Software, and they used, this Silicon Graphics workstation and stuff and software to create quite nice 3D objects and render to the 2D sprites, because Super Nintendo was basically 2D console. And we learned that we can do this the same way without using those Silicon Graphics workstations, using PCs and those machines and 3D Studio. And we started to create sprites simply as a simple 3D objects and render to the sprites. So it was much faster. The quality of because we try to be better at making the pixel art. The pixel art is quite difficult. Actually, the good pixel art is extremely difficult. And we weren't that good with the pixel art. So, but the quite talented artist joined us, and he said, I can create those 3D objects. I can do that. And we started create sprites for our next game using 3D software and simply render sprites. So it was much faster. The quality of this is because we could use lighting, we could use different materials, so it looked like realistic stuff, almost. Of course, the resolution was low, but that's how it was. And we worked on the next generation engine that could use those sprites. We had much better level editor. We could do parallax scrolling and stuff. And Epic simply asked, "Hey guys, what are you doing?" So we showed them our prototype basically, and they invited us to the States because they had this deal with the EA that EA will come and see what Epic's developer are doing. Okay. So they brought developers from around the world basically. So it was from Poland. It was our company, and he asked, "Do you know anyone in Poland?" So I also pointed to my friends from Rzeszów.
That's like nepotism. That's pure nepotism. Rzeszów in LA. Rzeszów in LA.
That's the problem, because I didn't know other developers in Poland. Because yeah, I just saw some games, but there was no contact between the developers at that time. So I brought my friends, and we went actually we went to Washington D.C. to meet with the Epic because the headquarters of Epic was in Maryland state, near the Washington, and then they all developers presented the games to EA, and EA selected two games, our game and some other game I don't remember, and decide, okay, guys, how much money do you need to create this game? So we come up like
I
150,000.
can imagine.
Yeah,
I can imagine the question: how much money do you need? And in your head is like tick tock,
no.
tick tock.
First of all, we had no idea because
Of
it
course.
was total, guerrilla development. You just did games. There was no Excel sheets with calculations about. We had no idea about the budgets, even about design documents and stuff like this. So
GDD,
yeah,
the
so
good old
so
GDD.
they said, okay, guys, how much money do you need? So we said, we did some calculation on paper. We need like $150,000, which was a huge budget compared to, previous budget was like $10,000 per game, maybe even less.
Okay.
And suddenly we have $150,000 for the game because we wanted.
So they agreed to 150. They agreed to
Oh, they
150.
agreed even more because we said because Epic was a kind of middleman in this deal. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, we said, okay, we need 150,000. Epic said, okay, but we need our share on that. So let's say 300. and 2 days, a couple of days later, they said, okay, Epic, yeah, agreed. So we have a deal. We need to sign the contract. So please give us a fax number. We'll fax the contract. So we get like 6 meters of contract. We had no idea what was in this contract. It was
Not in pages,
written
in meters.
Yes, it was written in legalese. So where to sign, we signed the contract. We start working on the game, and in a year we made this game, and we released. And EA released this game. It was Firefight. We had high hopes. The first Polish game released by Electronic Arts. Only 2 games in Poland was released by EA so far as I know. So we had a huge hopes that the game would be successful. We will move to the consoles. We'll create a PSX port of this game because in 1995 the PlayStation 1 was released in the States, and Mark Rain bought again as our second console. And unfortunately, it was just the catalog game for EA. It was pretty cheap for them probably to get this game. The game was good. It had pretty good reviews, but it was just a game in the catalog. So
Okay.
I have no idea about the sales, and it wasn't a huge success for us and for me. Besides, having the game released by EA, obviously.
Okay.
But in terms of expansion and making us a proper developers, it didn't pay off. But
So
I learned
can I?
I learned about GDD, because
Woo!
finally
Your
they
first
asked,
GDD.
please provide us with the game design document. We said, what? Normal, no GDD. Do you have any template? Fortunately, they had a template. So
Oh,
yeah, they provided with the template. It was quite, because we had no idea how to write one. What
of
was
course, of
necessary.
course.
So they had the template, pretty good template. So we filled everything and provided with the documents. We had some support from them. Obviously, the money. It was fun. Unfortunately, it wasn't a huge success. So
Was a catalog games of not a big success, but can we at least say that this is the beginning of really? You mentioned about that before, but this is the beginning of the new modern
yeah,
Polish video game
so
industry.
Polish developers are now making games for the Western worldwide market, and because the budgets, the scope of the games grew so much, it wasn't possible to sustain development from the sales in Poland. So it was necessity to go wider, and everyone started making games that were available worldwide. It was difficult time because you had to have the publisher, someone who will publish your game, because you have to remember still the games are sold in boxes, in stores. So in order to be not only successful, in order to have your game available worldwide, you need to contact the Western publisher, which has these capabilities of publishing worldwide, and negotiate the deal, get the money, produce the game, and have this game available. And this is what I did for the next, 15 years at least.
Okay. Wow. That's well. We have a couple of minutes till the end of the show. Like, your story was like captivating, really my attention. Also, this is type of topics that interests me very much. Not only video games, but especially anything that is done during the Cold War and this type of era. It's beautiful. It's beautiful to hear that. I think I put in sort of an ad on LinkedIn when I said, that you screwed you screwed the Iron Curtain with a screwdriver, sort of like, meaning that, with simple tools, you managed to go a long way. But what about the modern, the real modern? I mean, like the present situation of the Polish video game industry. It has boomed. I mean, when I came here to Poland 60 years ago, there was literally, I mean nothing, not in the literal sense of it, but there was very little. There was practically everything was very small.
Yeah.
And then I think the first one to really boom, to generate the boom, so the growth is, can we say, was CD Projekt?
It contributed definitely, but it wasn't, because we had Techland at that time. We had CD Projekt, we had People Can Fly, so Metropolis. So there were studios quite successful at that time, but you could count probably all of them on your two hands. There were smaller studios trying to, because the biggest change, I think, was the ability to publish your game by yourself. So online distribution, and this despite the other changes like The Witcher 3, obviously, which was probably one of the biggest successes, and the Dying Light, and the Dylan series. Those game definitely Bulletstorm. Those games contributed to the recognition of the Polish industry, but the ability to basically to publish your game on Steam online was the huge game changer. Not only in Poland, obviously, but we really benefited from it, because now all you needed was the money, because before that you needed the publisher, and you had to go abroad to find the publisher, because you needed the publisher with the worldwide distribution if you were targeting worldwide presence. But online distribution, the Steam obviously was a huge game changer, because you could create the game if you had the funds to create the game. It could be your time, it could be your money, or money from your family or some kind of investors. You could create the game and start selling the game on the worldwide market, on the Steam.
Okay.
And a lot of studios benefited from that, and a lot of people learned that sometimes all you need is a good game and a bit of luck, always, and you can create at least a successful title, not necessarily a successful business, but a successful title. And we had these indie developers, people, the individuals or small teams working on the games and publishing it. And suddenly, a lot of people realized that this is a quite viable business or even industry. and the companies start popping up. People with the money started investing, especially after the success of The Witcher 3, which gave you are muted.
The rookie mistake. How can I be a podcaster and doing that mistake? No, because my mom was trying to call me before, and I was like, okay, let me mute myself, otherwise they're gonna hear it again. Fortunately, my ringtone is Mario, so at least it would be stay on the same. No, but so at this point. It was also like the government that started, I think, when was like 10, 12, 13 years ago, when it started really, they understood. I think the Polish government was very intelligent at some point, deciding they saw the opportunity and they started really having like a bunch of money sitting there and say, guys, share it. And in the first years, it
Yeah.
was not fair because everything went to a couple of companies and the rest were just like, munching for trying to lick the crumbles
Mhm.
from the table. But then it's growing, and I think the Polish government did
Yeah,
also like a
because
good job.
they realized that there is this industry which is quite visible abroad and is related to some extent to the Polish culture. It's very successful,
Of course.
and they realized that hey, we need at least to be a part of it. Obviously, we did without the government support. All those successes were without any support. We learned how to do our jobs without the support, and then the government realized, okay, maybe we could be a part of it. The easiest way for the government to be a part of it, of something, is simply pour money into it. So they started different kind of programs, supporting programs. Some of them were better, some of them were worse. But this is something what other governments do, especially those with the quite successful and booming game industry. So they started doing this. Still, mm, well, it's a bit of hit or miss. Those programs, some of them are not that good, especially something called Game In.
Okay.
It was a lot of money because it was huge money. It was directed to mostly for the biggest companies. It is strange to have a support program which is supporting the companies that are huge, successful, have had a lot of money. So obviously they take, everyone will take the money when the money is offered. But this program wasn't very good. But there were programs directed at the smaller developers, especially with the idea to boost prototypes and fresh ideas and boosting up the project, and then the project will be able to find the proper financing elsewhere. So
Yeah.
those programs are much more promising. They come and go because we have a bit of turmoil, political turmoil in Poland at this moment. So we are
Oh.
not sure about the future of those programs, but we'll see. Uh, I'm not a huge fan of the government support, but I understand that the government will spend the money no matter what I think about this. So if I can have a say or can direct them in the proper direction, I will probably try to do something. I try to advise. I try to discuss about spending money. We'll see.
Do you
Yeah.
do you think that the Polish industry, which is currently is
Mhm.
fantastic, I would say it is like one of the top five,
Yeah.
four in Europe, maybe even. Like if you think about Polish industry, German industry, like if we don't consider the UK
Mhm.
because it's not Europe,
Right.
right? So when they decided, they wanted that. So if you don't consider the UK, bigger than the Polish video game industry, I think there is only Germany.
In terms
If
of
if you
people, we are probably bigger than Germany, but in terms of obviously money, the Germany is still bigger. France is obviously bigger.
Yes, France bigger, but also France has a lot. Yes, France is still like very big, but has a lot of also it. They have the headquarter or of big
Yeah,
companies, right? That also drive their and in Poland, it's Polish company in Poland
really.
mostly. There are few ones that have. Maybe there are some that have like an office in New York. I know people can fly have like something here and
CD
there.
Projekt has.
See the project, etc., etc. But it's when we're talking about Polish industry. it's Poland with Polish
Yeah.
people, and of course now also with foreigners, which is beautiful. I see that foreigners are flocking in now. I remember once I talked to someone that was working at Red Hot, um, and he's a Norwegian. I think he came here to Poland to work in this game, and it was really 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 interesting. So I don't know how you feel, but the way I see it, has really a bright future. Do you share that
Yeah.
thought?
Obviously, we have pretty tough times nowadays in the industry, not only in
Yes.
Poland, around the world. So it's the hopes are much lower at this point of time. But yeah, we are growing. We are creating a lot of interesting and different games. We have a lot of companies. We, as a Poles, are quite used to overcome, different obstacles and problems, because we reached this point without the special support, especially from the
Yeah.
government. We learned how to cope with the Iron Curtain first, and then we managed to contact Western publishers and negotiate the deal and create games, and now we have our own money. A lot of companies in Poland rely on the Polish money. We 3 years ago, we had a lot of investors interested. Unfortunately, the cyberpunk happened, and and different things happened. So it's much worse now. But this will probably change. We can rely on the Polish money, which is good. We have a lot of talented developers. We'll see what happened to the industry as a whole, because there's this big
Yeah.
unknown related to AI, how it will affect the industry, not only our industry, many industries. But
Yeah.
it's looking good, and the growth is really phenomenal. My personal, let's say, personal goal was to
Yeah.
bigger than Germany, because we have some unsolved disputes with Germans all the time. So
Oh, really? Oh,
so
no one knows about that.
is to conquer Germans in this way, and we are on track. So I'm quite happy. Obviously, yeah, we are the biggest part of this region, definitely, which is Central and
Yeah.
Eastern
Yeah.
Europe. So we are the beacon. We are setting the trends. We have the best
And that's
titles.
positive.
Yeah, it's great,
That's
really.
really positive. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would like other countries in the region to follow our steps, and so not I don't want Poland to dominate, but it's good to because we show them that the good games can be created almost anywhere. Maybe other countries,
Yes,
Eastern countries, Far Eastern
that
countries
is
will
true.
follow our steps and start creating interesting games. So it will be better for gamers, for everyone.
Well, Maciej, thank you very much. I share the thought. I think the future is bright for this country, video game industry. I am quite proud of the situation the way it is, even though I'm not Polish. I was not born here, but I would say I am half Polish at this point. I lived here almost as long as I lived in Italy. I lived in Italy 19 years, and now I've been here for this is my 17th year, so we're
Yeah.
almost there. And I am very proud. I'm very proud of what's happening about Polish people. Polish people are great workers, and when you become friend with a Polish person, is always very strong. It's a very strong relationship. They're great. The only problem that I personally have is always breaking through with Poles, even at work, right?
Yeah.
Even when I try to reach out with an email to Polish people, it's much harder to get someone to respond to your email if they don't know you than a German or a Brit or a friend or from in the States. In the States, for example, much easier. But whenever you manage to break through, then it's it's a lot of fun, and I respect for Polish people. So let's close it here, Maciej. Incredible story, and I'm actually a little bit sorry because I had to cut you off. There is really a part that you guys probably haven't seen or listened to that I have cut it where I said, like, I know you can go on for another 2 hours, but we need to stop. So sorry for that, Maciej, but I am super great that you came to my show, that we're my fifth guest, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to be a part of this show.
So thank you very much, guys. Episode number 6 is coming up in 2 weeks, and You're gonna be surprised, like another great guest with another great story. So thank you from Pietro Faccio. My name is Mario, the person behind the pro.